how I wanted to start this with you is that we recorded our first podcast in 2021. So that was almost 4 years ago, which is crazy. And so when you jumped into into Riverside, into this platform again, you were saying like how different I look from that last time. And it's actually fun because you're the first person that has come back on my podcast that ever says that. And I mean, there are a lot of people that met me when I was like 14 or 15, which is fun. That is like the first time that happens. But like with this, I would like you to get into like how this past 3 years have been for you in like this, looking at them through this lens of like how you have matured as a person, as a business owner, as a podcaster, and like also add to that like how this 2000 episodes that you have recorded for your podcast, like how that process of maturing has been for you.
Well, the first thing that comes up, well, first of all, thank you for having me again. I appreciate it. It says something when you get invited back. It means the first one was of value, and it does mean a lot to me, seriously, that of all the amazing guests you've had, that I had the biggest impact. That means a lot. And I think that the thing that comes up when you ask that question was the work you do in the world actually works on you. The work you do in the world works on you. So we have 2,074 podcast episodes of Next Level University. We now have 3 podcasts underneath our company. So Kevin and I, we co-founded a company way back, and it's become known as Next Level University. That's the main podcast that the company is built on. The main brand, Next Level U, pun intended. It's a place where you go learn how to reach success and reach your own true potential. We have 3 podcasts now. So we have Next Level University, which is Level Up Yourself, Podcast Growth University, which is for podcasters, level up your podcast, and then Business Growth University I just started, and that's level up your business. So Kevin's the podcast guy, I'm the business guy. We call them listeners, longers, and business owners. Listeners are people who learn from us, who want to reach their true potential. Longers are people who want to start their own podcasts and build their own communities like we have. And business owners are people who need to generate revenue, otherwise they're screwed. Kevin's the podcast coach, I'm the business coach. So he runs PGU, Podcast Growth University. I run BGU, Business Growth University. And we both still co-host Next Level University. So it's kind of a triad. NLU, PGU, BGU. And they all have their own little sub-communities. It's become quite a thing. Now, that said, the principle underneath that I've come to realize that has helped me mature a lot over the years, because I'm hoping that you're seeing I'm very different 4 years later as well. Hopefully an improved, upgraded version, more of a adult than I was. So you met me when I was 32?
Yeah, that's like the only thing that you need to keep in mind, that I was like much younger. And so like for me, maybe you don't look like a lot different, but because at the time you looked like much more mature and adult than I was. And like, okay. So
I got you. Well, not necessarily just outside looks, but the energy, the presence, the who I am. So 4 years ago, I was 32. I was Allen version 3.2. Now I'm Allen version 3.6. I'm 36 years old. So the next level version of you, that's kind of pun intended. The thing that jumps off the page that has helped me mature most is what you work on works on you. So you're doing this podcast. This podcast is work that you're putting in the world to add value to others. That is working on you. I think that what you create creates you. And there's a lot of science and data to back this up. You can look this up. People who retire early start letting themselves go. They start losing passion and purpose. They start losing their drive. They start losing their direction. So I always say growth comes from challenge. Challenge includes pain. Growth comes from 2 places. 1, life throws adversity at us. Or 2, the adversity that's the inevitable byproduct of aiming at high, hard goals, climbing big mountains. So if I'm a hiker and I climb big mountains, I'm going to get stronger as a byproduct. I think that that's the main thing. Is we have 2,074 episodes, and that's great, and that's having impact all over the world. We're heard in 175 countries. We have an 18-person team now, all this stuff. We have 106 podcasters and business owners that we work with, clients. So that's all great. But that work works on me. So I contribute, and then that decides and creates growth, because when you're climbing metaphorical mountains, it creates a ton of challenge, and then that challenge creates growth. It's like going to the gym. You lift heavier and heavier weight. And I think the world's biggest lie is that success makes life easier, not harder. It actually makes life harder because you have more responsibility. And the harder life gets, the stronger you have to get to sustain it.
When do you think that you had this realization of like, I like how you put it, like how you had put it before, like the work you do works in you. That's a good way to put it. But like, when do you feel you had this realization that changed you, like at an identity level, not just like, because it's different to like understand like the theory and the concept and actually like live it. And I feel like from what you're saying that you have been living it. So,
well, I think this idea of the compound effect. There's a book behind me. You had a podcast called The Book Lounge or something like that.
Yeah, I had to. The second one was the Book Talk Lounge.
Okay, nice. And I mentioned the compound effect 4 years ago, probably.
Mm-hmm.
So intellectually, I understood that what you do and don't do determines the level of success you're going to have in life. AKA what you choose to do, what you choose not to do, what you choose to focus on, what you choose not to focus on, the person you choose to be with, the person you choose not to be with. So, but when you get older and older and older, and I'm 36 now, so I'm still young, relatively speaking, but 10 years ago, I was 26, and I'm exponentially more well-developed than I was at 26 because I just put in a little bit more work each day. So the compound effect is that if you get 1% better per day for an entire year, you end up 36 times better, 37 times better at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. 37 times better, it's hard to fathom that. 37 times more articulate, 37 times better speaker, 37 times better intimate partner, right? But no one gets better 1% every day. If anyone were to go to my Instagram or my Facebook right now, I have a post that's pinned. It has over 1,000 views and very little likes, unfortunately, but a lot of views. And it's this simple concept. If you put $1 into a financial calculator, $1 into a bank account, and you grow it by 0.1% per day, which is 1/10 of 1%, that's like taking a penny and slicing it into 10 little sub-pennies. That's what we're talking. 0.1%, 1/10 of 1%. If you grow by 0.1% per day for a year, you end up with only $1.44. If you do it for 10 years, you end up with $38. If you do it for 20 years, you end up with $1,500. It's $1,474. If you do it for 30 years, you end up with $56,643. If you do it for 40 years, you end up with $2,175,000. And if you do it for 50 years, and this is my goal, I want to get 0.1% better per day for 50 years, which is 18,250 days straight. You end up with $83,543,756, starting out with just $1. So we're born as $1 in this metaphor, and you are 20, so you're 20 years in. I'm 36 years in. So I still have 14 years to be 50, and by then, I'll be 84 million times better than I was when I was born, mathematically speaking. So I always understood the intellectual mathematical component of small incremental improvements over time. It's known as the compound effect. Look it up. It's super important. But when did I really start to feel it? Brother, I'm 36. 10 years ago, I went all in on personal development. It is crazy how different I am. I went back earlier today. This morning, I went back to episode 20. So Next Level University has 2,074 episodes. I went back to the 20th episode. Kevin and I were fucking terrible. It was so alarmingly, embarrassingly bad. Of course it is. Of course it is. Why? Because we just got a little bit better each episode. A little bit smarter, a little bit more aware, a little bit more articulate, a little bit better. Boom, boom, boom. So for episode 20, it was good. But if you compare it to episode 2074, those are two young men little boys in comparison. So a little boy becomes a young man, becomes a real grown man, and that is the compound effect. It's really, really, really powerful. And I started to really experience that a lot over the last few years. I mean, 18-person team, and it used to be hard to get clients, man. Now I have people coming out of the woodwork. It's something. It's really something. And so if you look at anyone who has huge amounts of success, it's usually after a decade or more of really consistent hard work.
Mm-hmm. How do you think that intentional and unintentional actions and stages in life influence how you keep developing and getting that 0.1% improvements? Because like what I mean by this is that, of course, with things like the gym or with projects or relationships or money, it might be very simple for the mind to understand like, oh yeah, an improvement that I need to make when going to the gym is to actually do like full reps or things like that. Or with money, like actually invest consistently. So those are like very obvious things that you can like intentionally do. But then also like, and this is like from experience of my last years of living. So like there are things that happen that life brings to you, like different stages, different people, different like challenges, and through this like you do not necessarily intentionally get into those, but like that unintentional thing happening could end up like also helping to like keep this daily improvement going. So how do you think that specifically that last part, like that initially unintentional aspects of life help you to like keep developing that?
Well, so what you mentioned there is you have intentional effort, intentional energy, things that you intended to do, and then you have things that happened that you didn't anticipate. And I think you can learn from all of them. I have a formula for learning that I think is really powerful. I think it's really hard to do, and the reason why is because most people are taught not to be frustrated. So I call it the triad of transformation. It's frustration into fascination into transformation. So frustration is something that I think frustration is a byproduct of something in the way of a goal or a core value. So if all of a sudden the internet cut off and my audio stopped working and my video went out. Okay, so earlier my video, I don't know if you noticed, but it got really bright.
Oh, no, I didn't. Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. The exposure is messed up on my camera. I have to fix that. It's on me. I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated with my camera. I'm sharing that out loud. In my own head, I went, frustration? Okay, let's get fascinated. Why does that keep happening? Why is all of a sudden my exposure getting super bright? Oh, okay, I have it on auto exposure. I got to change that. That's transformation, also known as innovation. So I'm going to solve that problem. Life is about identifying and solving problems. Amazon went from ship a package in 3 weeks to ship a package in 2 weeks to ship a package in 1 week to eventually now it's 1 day. One time I ordered something on Amazon, it came in like 2 hours. How do they do that? How is that even possible? They just get a little bit better each day by identifying things that suck, identifying things that are frustrating. So one of the things that I think is really hard about life is that people consider people who get frustrated as very negative, when in reality, frustration is a good thing because it's the emotion that can create the fire that actually gets you to transform. So, for example, what's a good one? Okay, you're in the gym and your right shoulder is always bothering you. And you're trying to bench press, and it's really frustrating. Okay, time to identify, okay, what's going on with my shoulder? All right, maybe I should foam roll. Maybe my pec is too tight, and it's hurting my shoulder. Okay, so frustration gets transformed into fascination. Let's figure this out. And then transformation is when you take a new action because of it. So to answer your original question, everything that happens to you or for you or however you want to frame it, everything that happens, everything, this podcast, everything you listen to, everything you see, everything you taste, touch, smell, everything in life is an opportunity to learn something. This conversation, I actually thought about it earlier. I was 10 minutes late, my bad. I was on with Emiliano. She's on my team. She's a very important team member. And we were going through metrics. And I was like, okay, that's right. Emiliano, got him. Okay, and I was sitting there thinking to myself, okay, what am I going to learn? I want to learn something. I want to take, what's the point, right? I want to add value. I'm going to learn something, and I'm going to practice speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't ever just walk through life, la-di-da-da-da. I am intentional with every single thing I do and don't do, because I'm not trying to just get through the day. I'm trying to get from the day. I'm trying to pull from the day. If I invest everything I've got today, time and effort, and I put it all on the court, I'm going to wake up tomorrow smarter and stronger. And I'm telling you, if you do that enough times, eventually you become a very, very educated, intelligent, capable, strong, and smart human being. And those are the types of people who are in control of their own life.
You know, there are different things I want to unpack here. The first one, which is just like a fun highlight, is that like I liked how you mentioned that like those three parts of transformation through frustration, because my first podcast for which we first recorded an episode was called The Transformation Journey. So that's a cool, like, not sure how to call it, like Easter egg or whatever, but yeah, I like it. That's how they call it in like this movie things, right? When they like reference something from a past movie or something like that. But yeah, like so. Anyways, that's what I meant. So that, like, yeah, I enjoyed that. Then there are two things. Like the first one is with like I totally agree with this part of like how fascination and curiosity like helps you reframe frustration, because many times it's just easier to like stay in that feeling and like physical and emotional state instead of like just trying to shift it, not by forcing yourself into another way of thinking of an event, but through like being curious about it, and by like not necessarily judging it, but trying to like learn from it. It's like if you're learning a new thing, you don't get frustrated. If you're performing an experiment, you don't get like frustrated because it didn't go the way you planned. It's just like, oh, what happened? And you just like start noticing different things, and with that you learn. And maybe if the experiment was for something practical, you change that in some way. But like, so I like that way that you put that part of like curiosity. And one thing of this is like, what do you think about like frustration with things that are not in our control, and specifically like frustration with other people? So like, where does the transformation lie in that situation? Is it like transforming ourselves and our perceptions, our beliefs? How do you think about that?
Well, yeah, that's well said. So the things that are in our control is what we say, think, do, feel, and believe. So I'm going to go through those again. The only things in our control are the things we say, think, do, feel, and believe. And so the things that are outside of your control, there's a lot more outside of your control than what is in your control. So control the controllables. So I cannot dictate what you do and don't say on this episode, but I can say, think, do, feel, and believe a certain thing about it that is constructive. There's constructive and destructive. And I used to do a lot of destructive behaviors. So I would drink too much and too often. I wouldn't exercise. I didn't take care of myself. That kind of thing. And then I got in a car accident when I was 26. My birth father passed away in a car when he was 28. So this was my wake-up call. This was my transformational moment where I decided to go all in on personal development. And so when it comes to other people, the things that are outside of our control, other people, we can influence them, but we cannot control them. So there's 3 circles of control. There's things that are not in our control at all. Like, for example, what's something that's not in our control at all?
The weather.
I think in some ways that we can influence the weather based on whether or not we use carbon emissions and stuff like that. But let me give you a better example. Something not in our control would be whether or not a meteor strikes the Earth right now. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, there you go. Now, then there's things we can influence. So I can influence politics. I can influence policy. I can influence companies that win based on spending my money in specific ways. You can influence almost everything. I can even influence the weather.
Mm-hmm.
right? I can buy an electric vehicle instead of a gas vehicle, and I can influence the weather. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But very little.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I'm only one of 8 billion people on the planet. Okay. What's in my control, though, is what I say, think, do, feel, and believe. So what you're referring to there, that I think, to make this practical for everybody, you can influence other people, and you can influence their opinions, but you cannot control their opinions. And every pro comes with a con. Every single thing I say, everyone has their own unique opinion about it. So if I say, I love the movie Titanic, some people are like, hell yeah, I do too. And other people are like, what are you, soft? What do you mean Titanic? That's dumb. Some people would make fun of me, and some people would agree with me, and some people would be pumped, and some people wouldn't care. The problem is, when I was your age, and when most teenagers, they care so deeply about what other people think. And it can feel very caging. And when I look at you, I don't just see you now. I see who you used to be, I see who you are now, and I see what you could be. I see your potential. I see when I was 20. What did I think? What did I say? What did I do? What did I feel? What did I believe? And so all of these things influence you, and you have to let them in, and you have to take them in. You have to take in the data, and then you have to make a decision. So I have decided that I have certain people that I spend time with and certain people that I don't. And you fall under the absolutely people, not the absolutely not people, and I'll explain why. My absolutely people are people who are humble, they have high humility inwardly, high work ethic, and they're into personal development. They want to reach their potential. Okay, those are my absolutely people. Those are my people, baby. Mm-hmm. My absolutely not people, Emiliano, are entitled, meaning they want things just because they want them. They're spoiled, they're arrogant, and they want big rewards for minimal effort. Those are my absolutely not people. I've come to realize at 36 years old that that is one of the most important decisions you can make. I can't control those people, nor do I want to. But I can decide to not spend time with them. Mm-hmm. And once you figure that out, everything starts to really succeed, because you just surround yourself with such incredible, constructive, positive people that, yes, challenge you and have high standards, but they're not toxic.
Mm-hmm. You know, something I like about this is that I can relate it to the idea of, or the concept of momentum, and like connecting that to like this other part of like the daily improvement is like, you might be doing things like the things that are totally within your control, getting back to that again, like exercising and these things, like you might be doing them on a daily basis, but it's like much easier to keep moving forward and to keep improving if you have this people and these other things that you don't control but that you influence, if you have them push you forward instead of like hold you back, which is something that also like, yeah, of course, like where you are like almost with your phone, for example, with social media and this type of things. How have you kept like designing your environment in that way over the years? Like what has been like, I guess that who you spend time with is probably the most influential, but besides that, is there something else that you consider has also had a big impact?
Yeah, so I'm so grateful for the question. So I think so I coach 20 individuals right now. One is 4 times a week, 2 or 3 times a week. I have some bi-weekly, some weekly, and then I have a couple that are monthly still, but I don't do monthly anymore because I don't do it. It feels like we lose momentum. Speaking of momentum. Okay, Why do I say all that? I've coached hundreds of individuals for the last 10 years. I started mentoring, then coaching for 8 years, and long before that too, but I started getting paid 8 years ago. All different industries, all different backgrounds, all different countries, all different goals, all different core values, all different cultures, all different ethnicities. I just surpassed my 10,000 hours of coaching, training, and podcasting 2 weeks ago. I have it all tracked. Mm-hmm. I'm big into metrics. Mm-hmm. Why do I say that? Because every single one of them has this fundamental cycle running, and I'll give it to you right now. to answer your question. If I can get you to track the right thing, I can get you to focus on the right thing. If I can get you to focus on the right thing, I can get you to invest your time and effort into the right thing. If I can get you to invest your time and effort into the right thing, persons, places, things, and ideas, then you'll get results. So that's a system that we all can run. So you said environment. It's not just people who influence you, it's your environment. The truth is, it's everything you're paying attention to. Your attention, if I like to think of it like a dark room with a flashlight. Whatever you point that flashlight to is influencing what you say, think, do, feel, and believe. If this is going to sound mean, but I don't mean it in a mean way. If I were to go into a classroom with 30 people, I spoke at my alma mater 3 months ago, and it was a group of engineers. And this was their first exposure to business. I was on a panel. I also gave a speech. And it was probably a little overly intense. If this is their first exposure to business, I think I came in hot. Here's my point. If I were to get to know every one of those kids, men and women, they're your age. The average age was 20. I could tell you, I could predict, if I were to bet on who will be the most successful, I would look for one thing. Who has the best control over their focus? One thing you will notice about successful people, they are the best at controlling their attention. They're not scattered. They're honed in. I do not allow anything into my mind that is superfluous. I don't allow anything into my mind that is mental candy. So I'm very careful when I'm on Instagram who to unfollow. I'm very careful on YouTube not to watch dumb shit. I watched a TED Talk earlier today by Robert Greene. That's value. It was a very valuable, I'm not even a huge fan of him. That TED Talk was really, really valuable. What you pay attention to is determining everything. So we have the real world and then we have the digital world, and we all have to deal with both. In the real world, I'm very selective and very discerning with who I allow into my consciousness, who I allow around me. In the digital world, same deal. So I've been following you on Instagram for 4 years. You post things that are of value. Books, personal development. I do not follow anyone who posts nonsense that is inaccurate, it's clickbaity, it's like filling your mind with mental candy. Jim Rohn, you know Jim Rohn, this personal development speaker, he has a quote that I love. He says, you might as well try to make a cake with cement. You can't pour junk into your mental factory every day and come out with a rich, dynamic, positive life. It's impossible. So focus is a skill. And the more distracted you are, and the more you're like, I'll never forget, I was at a speech with a high school. We went to career day, and we were trying to encourage people to start podcasts, and I was too much. It was too much. And one of the kids after the speech, they were like, what do you think of what's going on with Kim and Kanye? And I said, to be completely honest, I don't care at all what's going on with Kim and Kanye. I don't think about things that are nonsense. And I had a moment where it's, okay, those kids are looking and thinking about things that have no real constructive value. They could be drinking deeply from great books like The Compound Effect, and instead they're worried about what Kim Kardashian said. If you're worrying about what Kim Kardashian's doing, you're in some serious trouble. Your future is not bright if you're following a bunch of fucking nonsense.
I like how this is interesting, because like it's interesting to me, because I went through this stage of like during the pandemic being like fully just into like books and podcasts and these type of things, and then I like once lockdown was over, I started like to change some things, like to start experiencing more than just like reading and having this information from theory, but like from actual things like in life. And like
Nice.
through these experiences, I of course went through many moments, as everyone does, of like being focused on like different. And I mean, I still fall into that nowadays. Like sometimes falling into paying attention to like some news that are not really relevant about some singer or about some gossip or whatever. So yeah, that's interesting, because I feel that once you make that conscious, like once you become more aware of how you are allowing your mind to focus on those things, you also start to see like how that connects to how you might not be paying attention to the right things in like your relationships, in your health, in your own future. So that I feel that has some sort of influence also, like to these other aspects of your life, which is something that of course nobody wants. Like you don't want to have your relationship with your family or your partner or your friends or whatever be affected because you couldn't control how you focus on like social media or this thing. So that's something valuable, I think. Now, like I want to start getting into the last few questions of the podcast. So I usually ask 3 standard questions to each guest. For you, I'm gonna like shift them a little to connect them to the things that we have already said. So like the first one is, what is something that you have recently learned that is like that you feel is very valuable to share? And I want you to focus on that through the lens of like, with the focus that you have for your life currently, for you, where you want to go, like what is the one thing that you have been like focusing on learning to keep like improving that?
Yeah, my most important focus lately has been make it obvious. I'll explain. I was someone who thought that, so I'm someone who's very existential like you. I contemplate life constantly. I'm connecting dots. I want deeper distinctions and deeper understandings. Understand everything. Myself, others, the world, the economy, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, business, and finance. Always. I want to understand everyone and everything 24/7, 365. It's exhausting, I know. But I realize no one else is doing that. And not no one, but very few people. And so I now understand that I'm losing credibility by not making things more obvious. I used to think that I could be behind the scenes and I could lead a team and I could have an impact. And I realized that I'm not leading from the front. No one knew I was the leader. So there's 5 types of leadership. There's the crew that rows the ship. There's the first mate that runs the crew. There's the captain that steers the ship. There's the person below deck with the map and the compass. The commander that charts the course. Then there's the Commodore who runs the entire fleet. What I came to realize is that no one was able to see that I'm a Commodore because I was basically hiding and I was too much of a coward to shine. Mm-hmm. And so now I have a hashtag make it obvious because I realize that leading by example is a core value for me. And instead of me trying to help people with fitness by saying I know what I'm doing, I just show me lifting a lot of weight in the gym, so it's obvious that I'm actually leading by example. Because I used to believe everyone could connect the dots and say, oh, well, he's obviously the leader. That doesn't work. They have better things to do than connect the dots of who's actually running things behind the scenes. So at Next Level University, we have an 18-person team, and I started to realize, like, Kevin has more credibility than I do, and I can't help people. I don't need the credit. I need the credibility. Emiliano, I can't help you if you don't know that I'm leading by example. Mm-hmm. If you don't know how much I know, and if you don't know how successful I am, and if you don't understand that I'm leading from the front, and you don't see the results of that, I don't get to inspire you. I haven't earned the ability to inspire, motivate, and educate you. So I would see these people getting these business coaches that don't know anything. And I'd say, why wouldn't they come to me? I know more than that guy. They don't know that I do. Mm-hmm. So I had to learn how to make it obvious. Make it obvious that I am successful. Make it obvious that I'm leading from the front and leading by example. Make it obvious that I'm in shape. Make it obvious that I'm happy, healthy, wealthy, and in love. So that's a weird thing for me. Some people are narcissistical and they're constantly always making it obvious and they're always status. Kevin and I, we're not that way. We lead from behind the scenes And we realize, okay, we kind of suck at marketing and branding. No one even knows we're that successful. There's all these guys on YouTube with all these fancy cars and all this stuff, and we don't show or flaunt any of that stuff. And so it's very hard for us to be seen as credible, unfortunately. And so we've had to really shift that and focus on branding, marketing, and sales a lot more.
Has that been something you learned that you should focus on as you have been like maturing and growing in your journey over the last years?
Yeah, I realized that I used to think it was noble to fight in the shade, so to speak, and to just kind of, I used to think it showed humility. I think it was mostly cowardice. And unfortunately, if no one knows how great you are, they won't let you lead.
Yeah. Like my second question, which I will relate to this, is what is like a book, a movie, music album, like whatever that you have consumed recently that you liked, and like I want to connect this to the previous thing by like maybe answer that through the lens of like something you have consumed that has helped you learn to see the spots where you are like falling behind. So like in this case, you were falling behind in like making things obvious, and then like you learned like, oh, I need to make that obvious, and you have been starting to get into that process. So like what has been some resource that has helped you with that? And also like if you want to share like any other music album you've enjoyed, you can do it as well.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, when we crossed $1 million and 1 million listens, I thought that we would have more credibility, but you need more than that. You need more than that. And so the movie that has influenced me the most lately is actually Mufasa, as much as I think some guys would make fun of me for this. So my birth father died when I was 2. I had a stepfather from age 3 to 14. So the first Lion King movie resonated a lot with me. It was kind of, run away from your problems, run away from your past, and then you have to go back and sort of take back Pride Rock as a grown, from a cub to a lion. So metaphorically, it always resonated. But Mufasa, I think, was even better. And for those of you who haven't seen the movie, I won't spoil it, but what I will say is that Mufasa was sort of a stray that became unbelievably capable, even though he didn't come from a royal bloodline and he wasn't technically a king. He became a king through his own merit and his own earning of reaching his potential. But the thing that was most impactful for me is he was kind of hiding his greatness throughout most of the film. And there's a female character in the film that notices it's always been him and that he's been basically orchestrating everything the entire time. He's like this amazing thing, and he's too cowardly to really, everyone's trying to have him be king, and he's like, no, please, no, like I don't want to be king, until he was challenged by a really toxic leader. And then he has to own his greatness because he has to stand up for what's right. And for me, it just resonated so deeply because, quite frankly, I was too much of a social coward to really shine.
I love that you shared that specific example because, like, in our first podcast, like, I'm not sure which part of the episode that was in, but, like, you started speaking about, like, connecting the dots and the intuition by giving the example of, like, Interstellar and of an analogy that your girlfriend came up with that movie. So, I mean, I like that. And yeah, I just watched that movie recently with my family, so I can see what you were speaking.
Mufasa?
What you're speaking about. Yeah. It was
nice.
It was, so I just came back from a 4-week backpacking trip. It was like 1 week before that. So yeah, almost like a little over a month ago.
Mufasa in the film, he was raised by women. And most males, he didn't really have a dad. His dad, he got separated from his dad in the beginning of the movie. I don't want to give away the movie, but it is what it is. And my dad died at 2, and I was raised by my mom and my older sister. And so as a male lion raised by female lions, he had skills that the male lions didn't have. And I just feel Kevin and I both were raised without fathers, and he was raised by his mom and his grandmother, his mom and his Mima, and I was raised by my older sister and my mom. So I feel very different than other men, and I definitely think I have some gifts that came as a byproduct of not having a male role model.
Thanks for sharing that. Now the very last question before we finish this episode, which I have been enjoying a lot, is, so I told you my podcast is called Coffee Lounge. And the backstory to
Cheers.
this is like, cheers, is that like I started drinking coffee like almost like, what was it? When I was like 5 or 6 years old, I started drinking coffee flavored drinks, and then I started liking coffee. So coffee is like part of my identity in some way right now. And the word lounge is just because that's like a signature for me and for my projects. But like with this, I was like, okay, what's a question related to that? And so now I ask like, what is your favorite coffee? That can be like a coffee bean, a coffee like preparation, or anything. And which is like your favorite place to drink coffee at, or your favorite like situation during which you like to drink coffee?
Nice. Okay, so first of all, huge fan. I always joke because in the past I have experimented with drugs. I used to drink. I grew up in an environment with a lot of drinking, and I quit drinking. I quit all drugs, and this is years and years and years ago. And I've been completely sober, drug free, alcohol free, and I didn't have a huge drug problem or anything like that. I don't want to make it seem like that, but I did drink too much and too often back in the day. And so I quit drinking 6 years ago, quit everything. And I always joke and I say caffeine is my last remaining vice, and no one will take it from me. And so I'm a huge caffeine fan. I'm a huge coffee fan. And back in my early entrepreneurial days, so 10 years ago, I started a little company called Lazaros LLC, what you'll never learn in school but desperately need to know. And I wanted to speak into the lives of young people like yourself at high schools and colleges. And good luck getting speeches at high schools and colleges with that tagline, right? So that didn't go well. But anyways, and I think I'm still on that journey in my own way. Next Level University, I decided to create my own instead of trying to rely on other people. Mm-hmm. But back in those days, when I was single as a Pringle and broke as a joke and just miserable, I was fulfilled inside, but I was externally very broke and not successful. And I used to go to Panera, and they had bottomless coffee, and they had great internet. And I'll never forget this. It was in Worcester, Massachusetts, and I remember night after night, our studio wasn't far from this Panera, and I would eat this big salad because they had these huge salads that were reasonably priced, and I was a fitness model, fitness coach, fitness competitor, just trying to figure it out. And they would come to me every night. I would be drinking coffee while working on my laptop and tracking my metrics. This is back in the early days. Mm-hmm. And they would say, hey, we have to close. I was like, oh, it's like 10:30 at night. I didn't realize. So I would close down that Panera night after night, just grinding toward my dreams. And I said hazelnut black with some sugar. Mm-hmm. And I would get bottomless coffee, and I would just grind my face off at Panera. They had great internet, and I built an online business. And if I didn't do that for a couple of years in those early days, we wouldn't be where we are today.
It's always fun to listen how coffee or coffee shops or these different places influenced people to get to where they are. But yeah, I love that because like in some sense also coffee has helped me to do this, and I always drink coffee. I don't have a story as good as yours, but I mean coffee is always there for me. Yeah, not yet. Hopefully someday I will.
You will.
But yeah, man, I appreciate your time and all what you shared. And yeah, is there anything else you would like to add?
Emiliano, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. The only thing I would say is your future, unfortunately, no one really cares. You have a bigger, better, brighter future on the other side of your potential, and you can't reach your potential without challenge and adversity. So there's two types of adversity. There's the adversity life throws at you. I had a lot of that growing up. And there's also the adversity that comes as a byproduct of aiming high. So believe in yourself, believe in your potential, keep going, and take responsibility for your own future because no one else cares, unfortunately.
Cool. Well, yeah, I will. Well,
appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Appreciate you too.